McLaren have built one of the strongest lineups in modern Formula One with Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri. But with the rumours around Oscar Piastri, if he were to suddenly leave tomorrow, who replaces him? Who goes into one of the most wanted seats in Formula One? One of the most wanted seats in the world. And what is the scary part about this? Only a few drivers have what it takes, in my opinion, to drive for that top team and go next to world champion Lando Norris. So, who fills the seat? Well, let's find out. Make sure to like the video for Formula One content coming quickly at you during the 2026 season. Make sure to subscribe. We are a new channel. We want to blow up. Now, before you get on to me in the comments, no, Piastri is not leaving as of right now. As of making this video, Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri is McLaren's driver lineup, both on multi-year deals. And I very much right now want it to stay that way. But what if it were to not stay that way? Contracts are only kind of a negotiable in Formula One. Drivers break them all the time. One issue with a contract, one team conflict, one potential opportunity, and a driver can leave like that. And then that does not just cause one driver move. Suddenly, the whole market explodes. All of the driver market changes. Take Lewis Hamilton's move to Ferrari in 2024. Happens unexpectedly, causes chaos. There's 6 new rookies in the next year. Carlos Sainz is at Williams. Anything can happen. Take Piastri himself as an example. He was going to sign for Alpine. It was all confirmed. It was all announced after Alonso signed for Aston Martin, replacing the retired Sebastian Vettel. And then suddenly, what does Piastri tweet? So now that we've said that anything can happen in the driver market, why McLaren? Why is that McLaren seat so badly wanted? Well, McLaren are no longer a midfield team like they were as Piastri joined. McLaren are no longer chasing the front as they were in 2024. McLaren are the front. They have a world champion. They are back-to-back constructors champions. Yes, okay, they're not the quickest team in 2026, but they are still the front. They've proven in Miami in the latest race that they are quick and can fight, with a sprint win for Lando. So therefore, with the seat being wanted, any driver can move. Now, the first driver I'm going to be saying is the obvious one, Max Verstappen. Well, Piastri is rumoured with Red Bull. Therefore, a seat would have to move at Red Bull. Who is being rumoured away from Red Bull right now? Because I tell you what, it's not Isaac Hadjar with GP moving to McLaren in 2028 and Max Verstappen previously stating if GP leaves, I leave. Surely there's only one way Max Verstappen can go, and that's to reverse it and go to McLaren next to Lando Norris. That would be the biggest move in recent Formula One. Okay, Lewis Hamilton to Ferrari was pretty big when you think of the stature of driver and the stature of team, but in terms of a controversy, that is probably bigger. With how much Max fought McLaren, how much they have locked horns, for them to then be on the same team would be quite something. Would that move be more controversial than Max to Mercedes, which has obviously been the more rumoured kind of drive? No, it wouldn't be more controversial than that. But if that were to happen, who would then be empty there? That's right, George Russell to McLaren could be a serious candidate that no one is really talking about. George Russell has not had the most ideal start to 2026 and isn't painting himself a brilliant picture. But think about all the brilliant previous seasons George Russell has had, 2025 being one of them. He was actually pictured speaking to Zach Brown, to Andrea Stella, previously in 2025, and you thought, what? McLaren are changing their lineup, but now that seems a lot more realistic, and George Russell could be a genuine candidate, a fast driver who isn't exactly loved by Toto Wolff. I say he's liked, and Toto Wolff very much wants him in his seat. But if Max were to go into that Mercedes team, who would leave? Who would leave? That's right, it wouldn't be Kimi, the current championship leader, the 19-year-old. You're going to keep your younger asset who has a higher ceiling. George Russell is a veteran Formula One driver. Putting him next to Lando Norris, an all-British team, will not only be great commercially, marketing-wise, it'll be a brilliant battle that Lando Norris would be up for. Lando Norris is used to being a double #1 driver, and those two candidates would keep it that way. The risk of Max Verstappen is obviously potentially losing Lando Norris as well, if he is that teammate killer that everyone assumes he is. But I think Lando would put up a very good fight next to Max, especially in a McLaren. In a Red Bull, it could be a different story. But in a McLaren, I'm not saying I back Lando, but I back Lando to do better and not just fall to the fight. He is a world champion after all. But honestly, the real problem for McLaren with those two candidates who would be very strong and very willing to join is not necessarily replacing Piastri. It's to try and not destroy the team. McLaren are known as one of the most harmonious teams in Formula One. Yes, papaya rules gets rightfully memed about a lot of the time, especially last year, but it has kept a lot of respect between Norris and Piastri specifically. There's been no bad blood between the two. I wouldn't say they're the bestest of friends, but no one is in Formula One. You're competing against each other, as Piastri said in that podcast. You can't be mates with someone you want to beat every single time you go out on track. Therefore, the respect they show each other is very impressive, and you don't want to destroy that at McLaren, because if you destroy that, you destroy the team. We've seen it at Red Bull. Their team is completely destroyed. Mercedes in the past with Hamilton and Rosberg, the team almost gets destroyed. You want to keep that respect. Therefore, maybe signing a previous driver for your team that you knew worked could be the answer. Step forward. Carlos Sainz. The man is currently at Williams, and if he was offered the opportunity to join McLaren, I think he'd take it in a heartbeat. The quicker team, the quicker package, the potential to win. How can you say no to that? He has joined a project, and that project has the same engine as McLaren, but McLaren are just a whole different team. They're currently champions. They've proven it. They've already proven it in 2026, which Williams have not. That would be a brilliant move. He knows he works well with Lando. The team know that Lando and Carlos work well. Carlos wouldn't be leaving for Ferrari again. He knew he'd have him until Carlos was no longer good enough. However, there is maybe one potential downside to this. See, Carlos and Lando worked brilliantly together in 2019, in 2020, simply because they were a midfield team. They wanted to work as a team and push forward together. There was never really any problems between the drivers. Lando was a rookie. Carlos was beating him in terms of points quite convincingly, but in terms of actual pace, Lando was there with him, especially in his second season in Formula One, when he picked up that podium, when he proved he has got the pace, he has got the potential to become a champion, which he has now fulfilled. It's a very different case at McLaren to when Carlos was there. There's been two drivers since, and McLaren don't change their drivers a lot. Therefore, it could be completely different. Would fighting for wins, potentially championships, Carlos was first, Lando already a champion, having that status which he didn't have before, could that cause a new conflict between the two? We know they're great friends, but could it cause a conflict now they're at the front fighting for purpose, for something genuine, with the top teams that didn't seem possible back in 2019? Could Carlos's hunger for a world championship, the chance at it, actually destroy his friendship with Lando Norris? Would McLaren want that? Maybe the guaranteed working together of Carlos re-signing him might not actually be guaranteed. Now, there is one more option, and that is to make Lando Norris a definitive #1 driver, which has never really happened in his career so far, despite being at McLaren so long. I'd say potentially 2023 only could you say Lando Norris was a guaranteed #1, but they knew the potential of Oscar Piastri as a rookie. So therefore, can you say that? Can you say he was a guaranteed #1 when they're asking him to hold position in Qatar 2023? Can you say that? Therefore, going into their pool of potential, Leonardo Fornaroli, they've just signed him for a reason, the Formula 2 champion. Could he be a genuine pick to not rival Lando Norris, but to let him become #1, learn off a champion, and eventually build up? Would he build up as quickly as Piastri? No one would know. I think Norris would have a bit more over him now, and it would take a bit more time, but Fornaroli wouldn't say no to that. But again, McLaren are a top team now. Piastri could go under the radar because they weren't a top team. They were at the back. He could learn very quickly without the pressure on him. Kimi Antonelli last year had a lot of pressure on him. However, it has chosen to thrive. But does Fornaroli have the potential of Antonelli? Yes, Fornaroli has something Antonelli doesn't, a Formula 2 championship. As a rookie as well. Fornaroli being Italian as well is a great marketing strategy in Formula 1, like Antonelli as well. But is it too much? Is it too much pressure for Fornaroli to come in next to a world champion? George Russell wasn't a world champion. Lando Norris is a world champion. And can it be seen as an outsider pick? Will McLaren stick with what they know in terms of that drive lineup, two #1 drivers? Now, concluding this, if McLaren needed to sign a driver tomorrow, I think Carlos Sainz is the most suitable option. May not be the quickest option, that may be Max Verstappen, but it's the most suitable option. Fornaroli makes it easier for Lando Norris and could bring more team harmony. But in terms of the most suitable, Carlos Sainz, he's been there before. You've surely got to pick him. But maybe after diving down into this, what we have learned is Piastri might be irreplaceable for McLaren, and it could be a massive worry. What if Norris eventually wants to leave to Ferrari as well? What if that happens, and then suddenly you're left with no drivers, McLaren, from the best lineup on the grid, arguably, to nothing, just like that, a snap of a fingers. That's what two #1 drivers can do to your team. So there may not be any perfect replacement for Oscar Piastri, and that's why McLaren may panic if they were to ever lose him.